Let the battle begin. We're ready to roll the dice on the best-selling role-playing game of all time, Dungeons and Dragons.
Your dungeon master has placed you in a dreadfully precarious position. You're playing the most phenomenal game ever created. Your choices are limited. Stand and fight, or run. Use your lightning bolt.
Released in 1974, the game lets you create worlds with heroes, wizards, and monsters, spawning over 50 video games,
Take that!
inspiring countless adventure films.
I have spells. I'm going to fly.
You don't have enough points. I am the maze controller.
And now a Hollywood flick starring Hugh Grant, Chris Pine, and Bridgerton heartthrob Reggae Jean Page.
I will watch it
Dragons
just for
sexy.
reggae. Yeah, I mean, and joining us is the Dungeon Master from the podcast and comedy show The Dragon Friends, Dave Harmon.
Hey, Dave.
Hey, Dave.
Hello. It is so unfair for you to show him and then cut to me like that.
Come on.
And it's such a bait and switch.
You kind of got the same hairdo going on there, so...
I'll take that.
Yeah.
That's a Bridgerton too far.
No, it is.
You're welcome.
Now, why do you think the Dungeons and Dragons has become popular again?
I think that it started on TV, Community. It started to get a bit of a comeback around about the time 5th edition came out, which was, I think, 6 years ago now. And I also think that everybody's been in their houses for the last year, and it's a game that can be played on Zoom, that can be played with sort of family regularly in isolation, and I think that that's been a big part of it.
I think that, though, the Stranger Things has also had a big say in it as well, and the fact that there's been a lot of stuff in Hollywood where these guys who you never thought that you thought they would have beat up the Dungeon Masters have actually all come out saying, no, we're now Dungeon and Dragon heads. So Vince Vaughn, Magic Mike star, Joe Manganiello.
Vin Diesel.
Vin Diesel. They're all playing this stuff in Hollywood. How do you explain the appeal for people who have been on the outside of this?
Like me.
Well, I think that it's a game where you can be anybody that you want to be, where that you get to make up the rules, where you get to tell a story, I think is the kind of boring traditional answer of that it's a sort of shared storytelling experience for the 21st century. I also think that people like to sort of have some drinks and some snacks with their friends and bully the one that has to be the Dungeon Master, and that's certainly been my experience.
Yeah.
So I think that both, it appeals to both the jock and nerd inside all of us.
Okay, great.
Well, you turned your love of the game into a podcast, as we mentioned. It's called The Dragon Friends. So tell us about it, Dave, Dungeon Daddy.
Oh, no. That's an insider podcast joke. That just sounds like a weird sex thing for everybody
Actually,
else.
let's change your name to that too.
Oh, no.
We'll do that. We'll change your name to that, just so you know.
That's so
what it is.
unfair. My mum's watching this.
What's your mum's name?
We've had a few...
Sylvia.
Hi, Sylvia. You must be so proud of,
Yes.
of the Dungeon Master. Dungeon Daddy. There you go. That's better.
That's-
Daddy.
Oh, that is incredibly upsetting.
Yes, we've had
How's the
few
podcast
little
going?
bizim from friends.
Okay, the podcast is going very well. It wasn't until now. Unfortunately, I'm announcing that I'm quitting the podcast. We've been able to take it around Australia. We're going to the Melbourne Comedy Festival. We're doing live shows at the Comedy Store in Sydney every month. The next one next week. We got to take it to America, be part of the Celebration D&D, and play D&D with people like Joe Manganiello, which was really exciting.
Wow.
In Seattle, in LA.
Is he good?
Is he good? He plays incredibly... He's an action hero. I don't understand this, but all he wants to do is play a bigger, stronger action hero who can also breathe fire. So
Don't we all?
I mean, I guess.
And now,
yeah.
what of this new film? What do you think about that? Do you think it's going to be any good?
It's such a risky thing to say, right? Because there are a history of some of the worst action films ever have come out of Dungeons and Dragons with like rubber shields, terrible spells, Tom Hanks standing, looking forlornly in the distance. I think that it will be... I think it has a very good cast. It has a real opportunity to be amazing. I think that Hugh Laurie is very good at anything he does. So, yeah, fingers crossed.
Let's talk about you going to the Melbourne Comedy Festival again, because that's back on. So audiences expect you just to play the game live?
Yeah, well, so have you ever played Dungeons and Dragons
No,
before?
I always wanted to, because I was a nerd.
Well, I bought you some dice, so there you go.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
How do
you
I
can
get my
keep those.
kids into it and stuff like that? Is that how I can start? Or it's not really for kids?
It can be for kids. It can be whatever you want it to be. But
Fancy, don't
Oh, that is a fancy dice.
there's a lot. Yeah,
Now I'm jealous.
it's a 20-sided.
Some dice.
There's heaps of dice. There's
you
multi-dice.
go.
Oh, gosh.
Now, make sure that none of the bigger kids see you with those, or they might bully you and take them as well. So just be
Are
very...
these
Ah.
special? Aye.
But no, so the way you play it is you roll dice that look like that, and the Dungeon Master, which is usually me, will... no, I mean, not for everyone in the game. I don't come packaged, but they will tell you, well, you want to jump over the dragon, shoot the mayor, impress the barmaid, roll a 20-sided dice, and if you roll higher than this number, you do it. If you don't, you fail. And that's it. You make it all up.
How many of these do you roll? And because that's also good for math. I'm putting my mum hat on here, my parent hat on here, because they've got to add up all of the numbers.
There is so much more maths than you think when you first start
that's
playing.
good.
Yeah.
But you do get used to it eventually, and it sort of becomes second nature. But I think that sometimes it's put people off for a lot. There was two concerns, which was like satanic panic 1980s style, that it was going to herald the end of modern morality, or just the fact that there was far too much maths for
involved.
a game that also involved chips. Yeah.
So thank you for this present. I will treasure it and try and get my kids into this. And thank you for being on the show, and good luck with the Melbourne Comedy Festival.
Thank you for having
now
me.
to go see them and get into it with the kids. It's a wholesome game with maths involved.
Yes, thanks, Dungeon
Don't tell the
Daddy.
kids about the maths bit.
Still very upset about the name.
Sorry about that. Sorry, Sylvia.
Coming up on Today Extra, following in her